There is a game that came out in 2019 and people still cannot agree whether it is a masterpiece or a boring walking simulator. 7 years later, that debate is still alive, and honestly, that alone tells you something very important about Death Stranding. Hideo Kojima made this game right after leaving Konami, which was one of the most dramatic breakups in gaming history. Everyone was watching, everyone was waiting, and when Death Stranding finally released, half the world said it was genius and the other half said they wanted their money back. So here we are in 2026, looking back at this game with fresh eyes, and I want to tell you exactly what this game is, what it does brilliantly, where it falls apart, and most importantly, whether it is still worth your time today. Death Stranding puts you in the shoes of Sam Porter Bridges, a delivery man in a post-apocalyptic America where some kind of catastrophic event called the Death Stranding has happened. The world of the living and the world of the dead have collided. There are invisible creatures called BTs, short for beached things, roaming the landscape. Rain, called timefall, falls from the sky and ages everything it touches in real time. Cities are gone, people live in isolated bunkers underground, and society has completely collapsed. Your job, your literal job in this game is to reconnect what remains of America by delivering packages from one bunker to another. That is the game, Delivery Man Simulator. And here is the thing that Kojima understood that most critics at the time completely missed. The gameplay loop of walking, climbing, balancing cargo, planning routes, and finally delivering something to someone who desperately needed it, that loop creates a feeling that almost no other game has ever created. There is this quiet satisfaction that builds slowly, delivery after delivery, connection after connection. The world is huge and the terrain is brutal. You are crossing mountain ranges, rivers, rocky valleys, and open plains, all while carrying dozens of kilograms of cargo on your back. Your balance actually matters. If you lean too far, you fall. If your cargo gets damaged, the person you are delivering to gets lower quality goods. Every trip feels like a real journey because it costs you something. Now, the controls. When this game launched in 2019, some people found the controls sluggish and overly complicated. There are so many systems. You manage stamina, cargo weight, blood and equipment durability, BB stress levels, and more. But sitting with this game in 2026, after years of experience with games that hold your hand at every step, those controls feel refreshing. They feel intentional. Kojima designed discomfort on purpose. When you finally master the movement, when you learn to use the terrain smartly, when you figure out the right tools for the right situation, you feel genuinely skilled. That feeling does not come from button mashing. It comes from learning. The tools available to Sam grow over time. Ladders, ropes, vehicles, exoskeletons, and zip lines are all things you can craft and use. And here's something most people don't talk about enough: the zip line system. Once you start building zip lines between mountains and connecting them in chains across regions, you feel like an engineer who just built infrastructure. The game rewards planning and patience. That's a rare thing. Now about the BTs and the combat. The combat in Death Stranding is honestly its weakest area. When you're forced to fight, it feels clunky. Boss fights involve Sam's blood as a weapon, which is a creative idea, but the execution never felt polished. The stealth sections around BTs where you hold your breath and move carefully, those work much better. The tension of slowly walking past an invisible ghost while rain pours down and your BB starts crying is genuinely terrifying in a very quiet and uncomfortable way. But whenever the game pushes you into direct combat with human enemies called mules, the shooting feels stiff and uninspired. It was average in 2019, and it has not aged better since. The story. This is where opinions split the hardest. Kojima is known for complicated, cinematic, philosophical storytelling. Death Stranding is no different. The narrative is about connection, loneliness, death, grief, and what it means to keep going after loss. Sam himself is one of the more interesting protagonists in modern gaming. He's not a hero who wants to save the world. He's an introvert with severe touch phobia, deeply traumatized, and genuinely reluctant to do any of this. Watching him slowly open up as he builds bonds with people across America is subtle and effective storytelling. The supporting cast is wild and memorable. Deadman, Heartman, Fragile, Mama, Die Hard Man, and especially Higgs all bring something unique to the story. Norman Reedus brings real warmth to Sam, and the motion capture work across the entire game remains impressive even by 2026 standards. Some cutscenes run extremely long, and the final act of the story gets so abstract that even dedicated fans have to watch breakdowns online to fully understand what happened. That is a fair criticism. Kojima sometimes mistakes obscurity for depth. The world design is extraordinary. The environments in Death Stranding are some of the most realistic and beautiful ever made. The landscapes are clearly inspired by Iceland, and they are stunning. Even in 2026, comparing these visuals to newer open-world games, Death Stranding holds up incredibly well. The lighting, the weather effects, the sheer scale of the terrain, it all still impresses. Time-fall rain aging objects in real time remains one of the most visually striking mechanics ever implemented in a game. The music is where the game becomes something else entirely. Low Roar, Silent Poets, and CHVRCES contributed music that fits the tone perfectly. Songs play at specific moments during long walks, and they hit you in a way that is hard to describe. One particular song that plays when you complete a long route across empty mountains will genuinely make you feel something. That emotional response is not accidental. It is engineered carefully, and it works every single time. The multiplayer system in Death Stranding is invisible but brilliant. Other players in their own separate worlds leave behind structures, likes, and signs that appear in your world. You might cross a mountain and find a zipline built by another player that saves you an hour of travel. You never meet these people directly, but their presence is felt constantly. In 2026, the servers still have activity, and finding a well-placed piece of infrastructure from a stranger still creates a small moment of warmth. For a game about connection, the multiplayer design is genuinely poetic. The replay value is moderate. The main story takes around 40 hours, and doing everything thoroughly can stretch to 80 or more, but Death Stranding is not a game most people complete twice. The director's cut version added some missions, a racetrack, and new tools, which padded the experience without fundamentally changing it. If you have never played this game, you have the entire experience ahead of you. If you played it at launch, returning today is a peaceful experience rather than a revelatory one. The weaknesses of Death Stranding are real and not dismissible. The pacing in the first few chapters is painfully slow. The combat never reaches the level of quality the rest of the game achieves. Some characters are introduced with tremendous build-up and then underused, and the final stretch of the story requires an almost unreasonable amount of patience and faith from the player. But here is what this game did that almost nothing else does. It made delivering packages feel meaningful. It made walking across a mountain feel like an achievement. It made loneliness feel like a shared experience. It forced you to slow down in a world where every game is designed to overstimulate you constantly. In 2026, surrounded by games that scream for your attention every second, Death Stranding feels even more countercultural than it did in 2019. This game sits at a 3.7 out of 5, not because it is flawed in obvious ways, but because its vision is so specific and so demanding that it will genuinely not work for a large portion of players. The people it connects with deeply and permanently. The people it does not reach will find it tedious and forgettable. Kojima built something singular and strange and honest. That deserves real respect, even when the game frustrates you. If you have never played Death Stranding, play it on a weekend when you have no plans, when you can sit with it quietly and give it at least 5 hours before you decide anything. And if this kind of deep dive into gaming history is what you are here for, then leave a like on this video, subscribe so you don't miss the next review, share this with someone who is still on the fence about this game, and tell me down in the comments, did Death Stranding connect with you or did it completely lose you? Either answer is valid.